Okay, welcome back. This is the chapter on Microsoft Access. And before we kind of start, jumping directly into Microsoft Access and doing some stuff, I thought it kind of prudent we kind of jump ahead to chapter 11 and look at a couple of the fundamental things, definitions, terms, those kinds of things before we get started. So, what is a definition of a database? So a database is a collection of data. Now, it's a collection of data that's organized in a particular way, okay? The purpose for the organization of the data is to make it easy for the machine to be able to find, search, retrieve. So it's designed specifically for data entry and retrieval, okay? So it's not really designed for the human, right? Now, if I was to take the same data and put it in Microsoft Excel, it'd be kind of pretty, it'd be kind of nice, I could look at it. That's kind of human readable. An awful lot of the data in a database is not designed for humans, and so you look at it and you go, what on earth is that? And then later, it becomes more human readable. So it's designed to make it easy for the machine to do things, not for the human. Okay, what's the definition of data? Well, it's just a collection of these stuff. I got tests, I got numbers, I got images, I got all this stuff. And this could be, things like, what is my first name? What is my last name? What is my age? What is my shoe size? What is my address? Those kinds of things. So, just plain old data. And then, of course, information. And we've talked about the difference between data and information before. So, information is the polished version. It's the value-added part. It's the part of the equation where I put something in a database and it's kind of sort of data, yet I can write a query to extract information out of data. So, we're using a database to convert data into information. I have tons and tons of data. What I really want to know is how many of my employees worked more than 20 hours of overtime last month. That's what I want to know. That's the information I want. Okay, I've got data, but I'm seeking information. So the database is specifically designed to extract that kind of information out of data. Cool. Let's continue. Alright, so the next thing we're talking about is some terms. A character, if your name was Bob, then B is a character, and O is a character, and B, is a character. So it's, a number, a space, a letter, a punctuation mark, other kind of symbols. And so a field is a combination of these things. So here's a field called student ID, and there's one called first name and last name. And by the way, not that this is absolutely positively required, but an awful lot of databases encourage you when you create these fields that you don't use spaces like they have here. This would be student ID all run together, first name all run together, okay? So that's just kind of a rule of thumb. So anyway, all these are fields. Now, fields have several things. They have a field name. Well, that's like student ID. That'd be the field name, right? Cool. First name, that's a field name. They have a data type. Well, my first name is going to be text. That makes sense. I wouldn't want to put a number there. But if I put my age, well, I probably want to put a number there, right? So if I put my birth date, I'd want this to be a date time. So every one of these fields has a name and a data type. Now, sometimes when you have a data type, some data types also have a particular size. But if I just put it like a number, if I like here, extension, number, there's no real the field size there. But when I come to text, it's like, well, how big do you want this thing? So how big should a first name field be? What, 1,000 characters? Jeez. I'd rather doubt your first name is that long. How about 40 characters? That'll probably handle it. So, you could just take the default every single time, but that's kind of wasteful. It makes sense to try to guess, how long a first name really ought to be, and how long a last name, address, city, state. When you get to city and state, particularly if I'm using two-letter abbreviations, I kind of sort of know how long that sucker could be. I could say it's text and it's 2 characters. Okay. So, field is this kind of stuff. Make sense? Okay. And so, field can be text, numbers. Auto number is a particular type of thing. Instead of me giving it a value, you just tell it's an auto number, and then the first time you enter data, it'll be a 1, and the next time you enter data in the next row, it'll be a 2, and it just automatically increments this little counter over and over and over, so I don't have to count, and it's kind of cool. Currency for doing money, date, memo field is like a big text field. A binary yes no, you could have something like, current student, yes no. A hyperlink, an object, or an attachment. So these are kind of the more common types of data that you would find in a field. Okay, so now that I've got a field, I want to combine them together. So a record is a group of related fields. So for this particular case, I have student ID and first name, last name, address, city, state, postal, email address, date admitted, whatever your major is, and a photo of you. So this is a single record of Milton Brewer, and it's made up of a combination of lots and lots of fields. So the fields are the columns, okay, and the records are the rows. Now, if you're dealing with Microsoft Excel, you talk rows and columns all day long. Well, the database people, they talk about fields and records rather than columns and rows. Go figure. It's just, two different technologies grew up at two different times, and so just the terminologies that they use are just different. Get over it. Okay, so a single record is one of these guys. And so this is a table. Now, I don't use data file as a term. That's a very, very old term, because in the beginning, these things were not stored in relational databases. They were text files. And so you stored them on a hard drive as just like a notepad document. And so your machine could go through and parse through a record in a row. So I use the word table. It's more modern. So a collection of records is a single table. So this is a student table that contains records of multiple students. Now, clearly, if I have a table full of students, the only thing that's going to fit in here is students. I can't put, inventory part numbers, right? Because that's got nothing to do with students. So once you tell it that, hey, I'm going to be storing student data, that's the only thing it can store. You can just throw other things in there. Okay? Cool. All right, we're almost there. So now we kind of sort of got the basic terms and terminologies and some of the rules. Now we can actually start Microsoft Access. Okay, let's do that. So, start menu, go to here, go to Microsoft Office, and find Microsoft Access. And you're going to find something that's a little odd. Instead of popping straight on in like we've done before, before when you fired up a Microsoft Word document, it came up with a blank document. Say, okay, would you like to start? When you fired up Microsoft Excel, it says, hey, here's a blank Excel spreadsheet. When you fired up PowerPoint, it says, okay, here's your title slide. When you fire up Access, it says, what do you want? It hasn't done anything for me yet. I have done nothing at all. So the first thing you're going to notice is the interface is a little different. Somehow I'm faced with a choice. Now, all I did was just click on Microsoft Access. I haven't even done anything yet. So what I want to do is I want to create a blank database. That's what I'm going to do. But going here, I'm going to change the name of this guy. Instead of having it called Database 1, I'm going to call it, I don't know, let's call this one Student. If I can lasso that, I'm having a little trouble. There we go. This is going to be the Student database. Okay. So I'm going to hit the Create button. Okay, so now here I am running Microsoft Access with some sort of a student database. And it assumes that the first thing I want to do is to create a table. That's actually halfway decent, but I'm going to stop right there and kind of, I'm going to not do what they want to do. So I'm just going to close this out. Okay. So let's just take a minute to look at this. So this is the the backstage thing, same old like you've always seen. The home screen is typically where I'm going to be creating things, and we're going to get into a lot more of this once we get going. So I want to create a table. Well, there's one way to do it, and you could just click this, and it just creates a blank table for you, and you start fiddling with it. I don't like that because it's just too clumsy. I like this thing called the the table design. And so I'm going to click the table design. Okay. So now it's basically saying I want to create the fields and the data types and the links. Remember the three things? Every field has a name, has a data type, and optionally could contain a link. Right? Cool. So I'm going to create one, and this first field is going to be called student ID, and I'm running them all together for a very particular reason. And I'm going to go here, and I'm just going to call this a number. So I'm just going to go down to here and just grab number. So my student ID might be, 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever my student ID is. Cool? So now I'm going to go down, and all I did was just use the mouse. And I click down here, and I'm going to say what my first name. And of course, I'm not putting any data in yet. I'm just telling the machine the list of all the fields that are going to appear in this table. Okay? So first name, and so it's going to be text. But look at the field size. The field size is currently 255. That's a bit much for somebody's first name. I'm going to change that to 40. I'm going to go here. I'm going to do last name. And once again, change this to 40. Okay. I'm going to say, I don't know, registered date or something. So registered, and this is going to be a date time. So I want to tell it the day that you registered for the university. Cool. Let's throw in some more stuff just for granted. I'll do age, so I want another number. Another number. I don't know, how about grad student? And you'd have a yes or a no, or whether or not you are a graduate student. Okay, that's probably good enough, at least to start with. Okay, so these are fields in a table which I don't have a name for yet. It currently says table 1. And so what I want to do is I want to store this now. Now that I've got a table filled with student kinds of information, I'm going to store that. So I'm going to hit the little save button, or you could just hit the little X here. If you try to close a table, it's not going to make it go away. If I hit this, it's going to say, hey, wouldn't you like to save that? And the answer is, yes, I certainly would. So what would you like to call it? Well, I'm going to call this one students. Cool, because it's going to be a table that's going to have a bunch of students in it. Right? Makes sense. And now it's telling me something, a concept that we haven't quite covered yet. Most modern databases require that every single table have a thing called a primary key. And what that means is one of these fields should be unique. So if I ask for a particular student, I can be absolutely guaranteed that I'm getting the correct one every single time, because there could be 2 John Does. So I can't just call it John Doe, because there might be 2 of those. So I have to have some way to uniquely identify which student I'm talking about. Well, let's look at the list here. Does anything kind of stand out? Like maybe the student ID? The student ID is probably unique. There's probably not going to be 2 students with the same ID, right? So that's a pretty good one. So it's going to say, would you like me to create one? I'm going, no. Don't do that. I'm just going to hit no. And I'm going to go back and look at that guy one more time. So now I have a table called students. Now, how do you go back to the design view? I mean, can I click this guy and then hit design? Would that work? Yeah. Can I right click and say go to design? Yeah. Doink. So I want to make this row right here, well, row's poor choice of word, this field to be the primary key. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the mouse into this little gray spot right there. I'm going to right click and tell it that it's the primary key. Woohoo! Isn't that pretty cool? Okay, this is probably a good place to stop for the 15-minute mark. We'll pick this thing up again in just a few.